Hello, Internet people. Steve Persch here, Director of Developer Experience at Pantheon. Today on the live stream, we're talking about our new certification program. That program is launching soon with one certification exam that checks your understanding of how the Pantheon platform works and some of the wider assumptions of website operations that Pantheon is built upon. We intend for this certification and the educational materials built around it to make web teams more successful, more quickly, and more reliably as they use Pantheon as a foundational piece of their web ops workflows. Now, I suppose that prompts the question, well, more quickly and more reliably than what? As a Pantheon customer and as a Pantheon employee for the last 8 years, I've seen some extreme alternatives to answering the question: how does a team learn to be effective on Pantheon? First, as a customer, my first project on Pantheon came when I was at my previous agency job. It was the first project at that job where I'd be wearing like the tech lead hat. So I felt a ton of pressure, maybe self imposed pressure, to make that project as successful as possible. So before I put that big Drupal 7 project on Pantheon, I decided to put one of my own personal side projects on Pantheon, first at the introductory plan level. I think I did a bunch of that setup work over Christmas and the New Year's holiday break. I went live with that personal project. So then, a month or so later, with that big contract customer, there wasn't much to do. I could say to my very engaged contact person at Pantheon, we don't really need all these onboarding meetings that you're offering. I've already taken a site live. I've read the documentation. We're good here. I'll come back to you maybe in a few weeks with some questions about setting up domain access module. Maybe. And also, especially 10 plus years ago, there was just less Pantheon surface area to learn. All I had to do was think, I'm going to make a Drupal site in the best practices way, and then it ran just fine on Pantheon. That part is still true. Now you make a best practices site, it runs just fine on Pantheon, although over the last decade, there are more Pantheon specific enhancements to try and learn as you go. Now, most development teams, most individual developers aren't going to use a side project on nights and weekends and holidays to learn a new platform. That's not scalable. Similarly unscalable was what I did when I first became a Pantheon employee about 8 years ago. Back then, when a new agency came on board with a few dozen sites, I might fly out to their offices in person. Things were different in the before times. I'd teach them as much as I could. We'd work elbow to elbow, and we'd aim to get at least one site switched over fully to Pantheon by the end of those 2 days, DNS and all. And then the agency on their own could migrate the rest of the sites. Again, that was different times. Now Pantheon has a migrations team, and we can migrate dozens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of websites on behalf of customers. And on the educational side of that activity, we'd end those 2 days of intensive work with some uncertainty on both sides. Did the developers at that agency really learn everything that they need to know to be successful? I and Pantheon as a whole didn't really know that for certain, and neither did those agency leaders. So, can we do something more robust to check if a person really knows what they need to know, and can they learn it efficiently? Now, someone with a much stronger perspective on how to answer that question is my colleague Steve Bresnick, joining the stream here. Steve Bresnick, you have been the driving force behind the Pantheon certification program. Welcome to the stream.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
So, Steve, for those watching who don't know you through your involvement in the Drupal community and whatnot, could you introduce yourself a bit? What's your background in the website ecosystem? How'd you come to Pantheon, and what makes you so well suited to get this certification program off the ground?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a unique background when it comes to tech. and that's helped me to really formulate this program. So I've been at Pantheon for close to 5 years. My current title is Senior Developer Educator on the Developer Experience team, which is your team. And prior to moving into this role, with which I've been in for about 9 months at this point, I was a sales engineer for 4 years at Pantheon, and then for 4.5 years at Acquia before that. So sales engineer's role is really unique because it incorporates a lot of different elements of the product, the technology, the value proposition of the product. So being in that role really helped me to understand our value proposition, our products, but also a lot of the questions and confusion that people had around using Pantheon. And I think being in that role for so long really gave me a unique perspective on the content that eventually became part of the certification exam, which I'll talk about in a little while.
Yeah,
Now, yeah.
that sales engineering group in what I've seen in my time at Pantheon has been one of our strongest groups. You and your colleagues in that sales engineering group saw up close and personal what is truly necessary to bring a web team, especially large teams, large companies. What is truly necessary to make a team successful and comfortable making what can feel like what sometimes is a very large change in just how they run their websites at all.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's really no better preparation for being able to, put together a comprehensive certification program and exam than being in that role, because you get to meet so many different customers and prospects with a wide variety of use cases, all sorts of questions. You have to explain the value and the way that the product works in many different ways. So I think that really, from a tech standpoint, really gave me a lot of ability to level up and become essentially a subject matter expert in the topics that are in the certification. Now, prior to coming into tech, though, I had another career. And that's where my education background comes in. So I actually started my career as a high school English teacher here in the Boston area. I taught in the suburban school district for close to 8 years. And during that time, I was, writing lesson plans and teaching and grading essays and grading exams, and really loved that aspect of education. But what my passion really started driving me toward was how to use technology to automate a lot of the things that I was doing and to really enhance the teaching that I was doing. And so that's really where that transition from public education eventually into where I am now came in, because I just found myself more and more enamored with what you could do with education using technology. And so that spurred me to, pursue a master's program at Harvard called Technology, Innovation, and Education. And after graduating from there, I went to an educational nonprofit and worked for 2 years as an instructional designer. So between the educational background, the instructional design experience, the subject matter expertise from working both in the space, and also, when I was an instructional designer, that's really where I learned Drupal, because I had to use it in my day-to-day job. I had to, build several different tools in Drupal 7 to help with productivity, and that really got me very excited about content management as well.
Yeah, at Pantheon, we sometimes throw around the phrase like, let's put the magic of the internet in everyone's hands. And I think we can always do more to communicate like, what the heck does that mean? But it sounds like you had a similar revelation to to what I had when I was transitioning from theater major to web developer. Like, oh wow, I can do what feel like incredible magical things with this Drupal system that I didn't know existed until very recently, and suddenly I'm casting spells. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't strain the magic metaphor too much, but it felt
Yeah.
magical.
100%. I think there's so much to learn out there, so much potential. And a lot of us developers are, I would say most developers I know, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but are self-taught just with the incredible amount of information that's out there to learn about any topic you want, but especially in tech, like,
Mhm.
learn about different best practices and different languages and different
Mhm.
frameworks. And I think Pantheon is just, another example of something that is very valuable for a lot of developers to really know and learn. And so, the certification program, I think, is a way to really focus that learning and allow people who want to learn Pantheon and are motivated to learn Pantheon to really focus on the specific topics that are going to have the most impact in their day to day
Mhm.
as they're working with Pantheon.
Yeah, that I think is a great point at which we can. I'll bring up your screen share here, and I think first what we're going to see is a list of the people who have passed passed the exam so far, and you are at the top of the list. You passed your own test. I took it a few days later, and then we have some Pantheon heroes, as we call them: Sean Dietrich, Greg Marshall, Rob Watson,
Mhm.
folks that we knew Pantheon pretty darn well because they've been using it as an integral part of their day jobs for many years, and at that early stage of getting this certification program rolling, we wanted to validate that yes, the people who have definitely been using Pantheon successfully are passing the test. And now, as we make this program bigger and bigger, we want to get to a point. We are getting to the point where we're supporting people who may not know Pantheon all that well in learning the essential parts, as you were saying, the essential parts of Pantheon faster.
Mhm.
So it may end with, okay, you've gotten certified, you've passed the test, you're in the certification registry. But could you walk us back through some of the other steps of getting certified?
Yeah, for sure. So, really, in terms of the journey that users can take in becoming certified, like you said, really to validate the content in the exam, we started with folks that already could pass the test without studying. So,
Hmm.
internal Pantheon folks, our heroes, our wonderful agency partners. But quickly became apparent that in order to really expand this program and for this to be valuable in many different contexts, we needed to have the structure and the activities in place that would help someone who is not familiar with Pantheon already to be able to learn what they need to learn and to pass the exam. And so the exam itself, just from a pragmatic standpoint, it's 50 questions. There are about 70 total questions, but the learning management system will randomize the questions so that not everyone takes the same exam every single time. It's a timed exam. It takes 60 minutes, but most folks have been passing it within 35 or 40 minutes. And it's all the questions are multiple choice. They're designed to really achieve the knowledge that we need and to help test takers demonstrate that knowledge, but also really to do so in an efficient way that makes it easy and efficient for them to demonstrate what they know.
Yeah, and it looks like you may have some of those other tabs open here. Could you show us some of what else is there?
I'd be happy to. So when I first started creating the exam, what I did was I wanted to take all of the topics that were going to be useful, and so I drew from my sales engineering experience, topics that everyone should know about Pantheon. Common questions and misperceptions that come up in the sales cycle. Certain types of essential knowledge that new customers needed. So I started by kind of creating an exhaustive list of all of those different topics. And then I worked in Pantheon with several subject matter experts on the sales engineering team, on our product team, with engineering as well, to really flesh out what you're looking at right here, which is learning objectives. And so these learning objectives are, you can see, organized by topic here. And these are what was used to create both the exam questions themselves and the educational materials around the exam question. So you can see there's an exhaustive list. There's, I think, 117 of them. Obviously, we don't expect everyone to know every single one of these perfectly, but what these are designed to do is to really allow someone who's studying for the exam to know exactly what they need to know. So from there, I created this WebOps certification guide, which has most of the content is already from our documentation page and different topics. But a couple of the things that I included in this exam to help exam studiers were that each chapter at the beginning has a list of learning objectives that appear in the chapter. And so, that allows you as an exam taker to read one chapter at a time, go back and make sure that the content that you're reading is applying to these learning objectives, and making sure that you're structuring your time in the most efficient way. And then at the end of each chapter, there are practice review questions that someone could then take. Now, I modeled this after a couple of the other technical certifications that I've taken and passed. So Google Cloud Platform, Amazon Web Services, and the Drupal certifications that Acquia does. All of those really informed a lot of the approach that I took to building out this guide. There's really high quality materials out there for certifications, and in order for someone who is not expert already in Pantheon, like Sean Dietrich and folks that work at Pantheon, we needed a way for them to both learn the material that they need to learn, and also structure that learning in a way that helped them to know that they were effectively learning that material.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just going to jump back over to my beloved crayons and Legos here
Yes.
for a second. Yes, gotta love these crayons and Legos. There we go, almost. Hey, all right. So, a person, if they're watching here, I just dropped the link into the chat as well. If you want to jump straight to signing up to take the exam, go to pantheon.io/certification. You can sign up there. So a person signs up to take the exam. They study the study guide, they take the test, and then they celebrate. It's I have found it enjoyable to watch those LinkedIn messages pop up as people have been sharing their certification badges. It helps validate that yes, this truly is valuable. And you were referencing those AWS, those Google Cloud certifications that act as significant career builders for people. Looking at that list of people who have passed the exam already, I see people who I know were able to get their next job in part because of their expertise in Pantheon and their capacity to use Pantheon very effectively for a large number of websites in one job, help them get their next job. If I myself wanted to do that with the AWS or Google Cloud certifications, I would need to study a ton because I have not spent much time directly in those worlds. And as we've been working on this certification together, I've thought about like the distinction between the map and the territory. So if I have here a very rudimentary map of my neighborhood, and my young son, I think, has internalized, like, he knows where his home is. He knows how to walk to school. I love that our school is such a close walk by. I do like that Oma and Opa are just 1 block away as well. Now, my 6-year-old son has not like sat down and studied a map of the neighborhood, but he does know how to get around the neighborhood, and he probably could pass a test on how to get to these key places. I found it very validating when we gave this test to the folks who had not studied this very detailed map that you have curated for them. They still know the territory and they can pass a test on the territory. For people who are new to the territory, that map is also super, super helpful.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's the difference between looking at that vast field of unlimited knowledge that you need to know, and it's impossible to know everything. So having that map and being able to really structure that learning is really key. I love this drawing, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I just set low expectations for my drawing capabilities, and my 6-year-old son will very, very quickly be surpassing me in these crayon drawings. He likes crayons and Legos too. And let me drop a link here to the certification study guide itself for anyone who wants to jump straight into studying. I'll bring the map off here, and Steve, I wonder if you could talk a bit more about the different groups of people we think will most benefit from studying the certification, and then also getting certified. I noticed that in that list, I see a lot of developers who are presently working for agencies or have been among the agency ecosystem in Drupal and WordPress for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's there's really 4 stakeholder groups that we're targeting here. And in order, I would say number 1 is our agency partners. There's a lot of value for them to have certified developers when they are working on Pantheon projects from a day-to-day. It helps them to achieve results faster. It helps them to rotate different developers into and out of projects that are on Pantheon. It really helps them to better serve their customers, and there's a lot of value there. So we've been focusing a lot on our partner agency program, and then also our Pantheor heroes. So those kind of fall into a single group for these purposes. Additionally, we have existing customers. So a lot of our customers work with agencies, but a lot of them also have internal development teams or centers of excellence within their own program, and being able to learn all of the features of Pantheon, being able to understand our web ops philosophy, and being able to get the most value out of Pantheon as a platform is going to help our customers. It's also going to help our customers to be more self-sufficient when it comes to needing different support items. So there is a bit of a self-serving angle on our part there, because better customers are more knowledgeable customers are happier. They're also less of a drain on our support. Third, prospective customers. So I've worked a lot with sales org at Pantheon, and getting new customers to come onto the platform. A lot of times, they have coming from other platforms, and learning Pantheon can sometimes feel a little bit daunting, even though, when you have all of this information at your fingertips and you have a structured way to learn it, it becomes less daunting. And so we envision that during the sales cycle for prospective customers, having the ability to get their developers certified, or if they have an agency that they're already working, allowing that agency to become certified in Pantheon will really help alleviate any concerns that they might have about the impact of moving from the existing platform to Pantheon. And then the fourth group is our internal employees. So anyone at Pantheon who is customer facing or who works with the product really can benefit from this knowledge, and really understanding holistically what the value of Pantheon is and what the different features and functionality we offer is.
Yeah, I'm excited for all four of those groups to be taking the test, engaging with the certification materials. Perhaps I have outsized excitement for its internal utility, as Pantheon, like all companies, has new employees arrive. We're always thinking about how can we best prepare new employees to understand what we do here, what makes Pantheon unique, and having the structure helps. And we won't name names, but I know at least one even Pantheon employee failed the exam. It is a difficult exam. I wonder if you could share some of what has tripped people up with the exam, because it's legit. It's tough. You got to read it. It is possible to fail this exam. It's not just a hoop to be jumped through.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this really goes back to, my philosophy about multiple choice exams in general. They are very much imperfect measurements of mastery, right? I mean, it reminds me of that old adage where if you put a bunch of monkeys with a bunch of typewriters, if you do that enough times, like, one of them is eventually going to write a Shakespeare play, right? And so multiple choice, right, isn't the most rigorous way to demonstrate knowledge, but it is absolutely the most efficient way for us to measure that learning at scale. And so it's really the only way I think that certification programs can be assessed. So the way to view the multiple choice is it's the tip of the iceberg. So you want to make it challenging enough, but not confusing in a way that is challenging. That you want to test the right thing. So you want to test the knowledge, but you don't want to test the user's mastery of confusing language. So I was very conscious of that. Yeah,
I'm having you're bringing up for me a painful memory of an argument I had with my AP biology teacher, where she said something like, "Steve, do you think I'm trying to trick you with these questions?" And I said, "Yes, because I do think you're trying to trick me, because you told me that that's a thing to be aware of with these multiple choice AP tests, that many of those questions are written specifically to trick you." At least that's my multi-decade-old reference of AP bio tests. Maybe they've gotten better. But one thing I did appreciate, taking this test myself, is that even though the questions did require me to deliberately read them, it's not the kind of multiple choice questions where you can just skim and there's an obvious right answer. Like, I do need to read them closely, but then when I do, I know, like, oh, I am not being tricked. There is a clear right answer. So right. I appreciated that. Even though these questions require attention and close reading, they are not trick questions. They actually do have a correct answer. And one thing that greatly alleviated my skepticism was that, compared to some of the tests that I've seen out there, when I've seen people approach questions like, what is the right way to do something in Drupal? I think to myself, I know at least 6 ways to do that thing. And that's more of a shortcoming of Drupal. It's a strength and a shortcoming of Drupal that there are 6 legit ways to do that one that one bit of theming or site building or whatever it may be. Here with the Pantheon product, there's often the one way to do it, and that's the right answer to the multiple choice question.
For sure. Yeah. And, getting back to this idea of the imperfect assessment instrument that is the multiple choice question. The goal of the multiple choice exam is to compel somebody to learn the material. So by reading through the study guide, we include the learning objectives at the beginning of every chapter so that someone knows that we're not we're exactly what they're supposed to be retaining. So really focusing on close reading, but making sure that as you're reading it, what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the multiple choice questions, there's 5 five choices for every question. And I'll just skip to chapter 2 review questions. So you can kind of see. Yeah.
I'll bring your. I had removed the screen share briefly, but I'm bringing it back up here.
Definitely, yeah. So every question has 5 choices. Within these questions, there's always obviously exactly one right answer. And so usually there's one right answer. There should be one answer that if you know about Pantheon from studying or from experience, that you should be able to cross at least one answer off. So for example, right, if you know from reading or working on Pantheon that we use Nginx as our web server instead of Apache, and you find a question about an htaccess file, and one of the choices is, well, you can configure redirects in your htaccess file. That is a common way to configure redirects. However, what that question would be assessing is, do you know that Pantheon, because it uses Nginx, ignores the htaccess file? And so that's the type of tricking or challenging that I really tried to build into these questions. Not things that made it confusing just based on how it was worded, but more really just making trying to assess whether the test taker knows some of the specific examples about Pantheon.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just looking at that middle question there, question number 2, the purpose of Pantheon's dashboard status report tool, provide visibility into development activity. No, it doesn't really do that. It's the thing that gives you the red, green, yellow readout of and answer number C there, adherence to application security and configuration best practices. There's another part of the dashboard that gives you visibility into development activity that shows you the Git commits that are happening. There's another part of the dashboard where you can configure the locking down of environments with the basic auth username and password. There's another part of the dashboard for updating WordPress or Drupal core, answer D, and there's a different part of the dashboard for support chat. So yeah, a question that does require me to actually read all the answers, but one where there is a clear answer for people who have used Pantheon as part of their jobs or have read the study guide.
Exactly. Yeah.
So one thing that's come up, Steve, as we've been working together is the idea of a growth mindset over a fixed mindset. And could you address how that frame of reference fits in for developers who are on one level applying the knowledge that they have, a lot of the developers in our ecosystem, are working on billable hours. They're trying to get tasks done. They're leveraging the information that they have. How does a developer in that situation also fit in growing the total amount of information that they know?
Yeah. So just, to take a step back. So just so that everyone is understands what we mean by growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is really the idea that intelligence is fixed from birth, and that you are either smart or you're not smart, and you're smart to a different way. I think that's something that a lot of us kind of grew up with, and it's really there are a lot of studies out there that show that mindset is both incorrect, and it's also can be fairly destructive to kids in a lot of different ways. Whether it's worrying that you're not smart enough and feeling bad about that, or thinking that you are smart and that you don't actually have to work hard to learn the materials. So there's a researcher at Stanford named Carol Dweck who's big into this growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And so I learned a lot about her. In the tech space with developers, we learn because there are things that the technology is always changing. So you always need to have that growth mindset in mind, because you're going to need to learn new things constantly in order to stay current with the different technology that you're going to be working with from a day-to-day basis. So I think where that kind of ties in with your point about so many hours in the day and needing to have deadlines and getting the work done. What the certification really is meant to do is to give you that ability to level up and to know that you have learned enough to pass this exam. Whereas if you are just learning and there's no end in sight, or no goal in sight, then you could feel like you are not learning enough, and like, because there's always more to learn and nobody can know everything. So I think that's really where the certification fits in that growth mindset. It gives someone a clear goal and guidance on what exactly they should be learning, and allows them to time box that learning so that they can get on with their projects and learn the next thing.
If if only I could have time traveled and told younger Steve, the younger Steve Persch, that I could have used that mindset shift earlier. I took this test myself. I did not get a 100%, and
You got
I wrote a
close
couple.
though, right?
I think I think I
recall.
got a 9. I think I got a 92. I got 4 questions wrong out of 50, and myself years ago, I would have beat myself up about that, and now it's like, no, this is enough. We're in that certification registry. We're not publicizing the scores people got. If you get a passing score of 75% or higher, you've passed. You're certified. Now go forth and make websites. That's where we want people focused. Ultimately, our success in the web development community hinges on, like, are these websites that we're making successful? And whether or not I get a 92 on the Pantheon certification exam or a 100%, that probably is not going to determine whether or not I make a website that is of higher quality and therefore gets higher conversions. Now if I get a 10%, that's an indication I need to go back and study. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say your 92% is a very good score. You should be very proud of that. The 75% is the passing score, as you said. Although if you do the math, 75% of 50 is actually impossible. So you need to get 76, which means that you can get 12 wrong.
Yeah, it's a clean cutoff then. We don't have to do what people have to do in, like, sports gambling and say, like, it's
Oh, the
Packers
over-under.
by 5.5 points. Like, what does that mean? Yeah, we get that built in with the even and odds here. You know, one idea I'd want to get out there before we go, is we're starting to run out of time here, is um, uh, one you mentioned Carol Dweck and growth mindset and fixed mindset. I have been hooked on the Checklist Manifesto book for the last few years, and one of the reasons I have found it so helpful is because um, it that book, which suggests that people use checklists, most critically, it suggests that people use checklists when collaborating. The book itself is structured around the checklists that get used for medical surgeries, the checklists that get used for construction, the checklists that get used in aviation, when multiple human beings are coming together to do something very important, often like literally life and death in the case of, well, all three of those. All three of those, if you do them poorly enough, it is life and death. And checklists can be an incredibly helpful tool for validating that, like, at least this floor has been met. That at least we have fuel in the aircraft. At least all of the construction subdepartments have reviewed the blueprints, and everyone in the surgical team at least knows each other's first name, which is a thing that actually had to get put on the checklist. Among web developers, I think the web development community is going through a similar transition now that medicine, construction, aviation also had to go through a transition from, it is possible for one person, like the webmaster, to know everything. Well, no, that's not possible anymore. Just as it's not possible for one doctor to know all of the specialties. There are lots of medical subspecialties and lots of specializations within nursing and the supporting fields as well. There's a similar thing happening in web development, and to be able to check off on your checklist, like we at least have our developers certified on Pantheon or whatever tools it is that you're using. That is a way of indicating, like, we have this baseline level of stability, and we can now do our jobs on top of that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great analogy. And I'm looking forward to reading that book. I've heard you talk about that in the past. It's a good book.
Yeah. It is now the background picture on my on my work phone, which is also coincidentally, maybe not coincidentally, the the way that I have this overhead camera set up. It's my work phone plugged into the virtual camera, whatchamacallit. What we're hoping people do after watching this live stream, go over to docs.pantheon.io/certification, read wait, I should do this in order. So first, sign up over on this page, study for the exam, take the exam, and then celebrate and make some great websites. Anything more you want to share, Steve, before we go?
Yeah, just on that last point, we do have really pretty looking digital badges that you earn. I can quickly show mine, and these have become very popular among folks that have taken the exam. So you get this digital certificate as well as a digital badge, and there's also ways to share this on your social media. So we've had a lot of fun watching people who have passed the test share this on LinkedIn and on their different social channels. But there is excitement that people feel about getting these digital certificates, and so this is what you can expect when you successfully complete your certification on Pantheon.
All right. Well, I'm excited too, Steve Bresnick. Thanks for joining us here on the live stream. Thanks to everyone out there on the internet watching. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.